I'd love for you to talk about having a robust, resilient thinking as it relates to relationships, planning, alliances, and things of that nature.
Sure. I mean, one of the great things about, talking to the whole IT sector is they really understand redundancy, right? Thank God. Whereas in other functions, there's such a completely myopic view that efficiency is everything, that there's no redundancy at all. But in IT, generally, people do understand redundancy. But I think what's really interesting is that it's a concept that can be so much more widely applied to other aspects of business than just technology. So, one of the stories in my book, an organization I started writing about probably 3 years ago, is an organization called the Center for Epidemic Preparedness. And the man who runs that, who's an American executive named Richard Hatchett, I think has a very beautiful mind. And he talked to me about kind of, if you like, two different mindsets. And one of them he calls just in case, and one of them he calls just in time. And just in case is thinking about the possibility of a disaster, in his case, epidemics. And in that case, what are the things you would wish you had in place already? It's a fantastic question. And so thinking about epidemics, he thought, well, we need to have a lot of vaccines in development ahead of time. And indeed, because of Richard Hatchett, the Center for Epidemic Preparedness had, at the time that the coronavirus epidemic erupted, they already had coronavirus vaccine candidates in development. So he thought about, what are the diseases that are most likely, therefore, what are the vaccines we should work on, and let's start working on them before we need them. So that's a really interesting thing to think about your network or your IT infrastructure, which is if things went wrong, let's imagine the different ways in which they could go wrong. What are the things we would wish we had sitting on the shelf just waiting to be used? The other thing that Hatchett thought about in the just-in-case mindset was, if you want to get vaccines into bodies, you need fantastic relationships with all the healthcare personnel on the ground. This is, as he said, these are his words, don't exchange business cards in a crisis. So he and his whole organization started developing these country by country, both the kind of governmental healthcare people and all the people on the ground, so that if they had to go into a brand new country, they already had friends and allies there. Absolutely brilliant thinking, because this accelerates the application of the planning that they've already done. So I think there are so many things that are smart about his thinking, but one of them is realizing people are part of my infrastructure. I need to know them. I need to understand what they need from me. I need to understand their culture and their values and how they work, so that when we really, 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 really need them, I'm not just some new guy whose name they don't know yet, phoning out of the blue. I want them to pick up the phone because they know me and they trust me, and we can move together fast. And then he thought about just in time. What is the stuff we're just going to have to do really, really, really fast? And he said, we're going to have to, if we have vaccine candidates, we're going to need to manufacture them really fast. So let's put the contracts in place now. Let's think about capital flows now, so that when the time comes, we can push that button and get vaccines cranked out at a speed that normal pharma does not work. So that's about really, really kind of tight manufacturing processes being ready to go at the drop of a hat. And I think what's so fantastic about his thinking is he's not saying it's not about efficiency, because just in time is all about efficiency. But he's accepting that this just in case thinking cannot be efficient. I might develop relationships with people I don't need. I will certainly develop vaccines that don't work. And I might even develop vaccines that do work, but actually we don't have an epidemic of that disease. Ever, maybe.
Yeah.
So you have to accept that the cost of the redundancy is work that may turn out to have look like waste. But once you accept that you can't predict this stuff, you are so much better off having it in your back pocket than having nothing in your back pocket when disaster strikes.